Who would help this poor woman? When her swimsuit top came undone and she was struggling in the pool, a woman approached and helped her retie it. But right after, the woman unexpectedly kissed her cheek. Turns out, this woman was from the future. She was her future self, having traveled back 25 years using a time machine to change her life. She wanted to prevent the meeting between herself and her current husband. So, she sought out that foolish girl, who was none other than her younger self. The girl's name is Myray, and she currently works as a customer service representative for an electronics company. While answering customer calls, Myray often browses programs she's interested in watching. Her favorite is a program hosted by the handsome Kim Shin. Kim Shin is also Myray's future husband, and that's why her future self is trying to prevent this marriage. Myray repeats the same routine every day, singing to appease customers and keep them satisfied. However, she's often ridiculed by customers and sometimes has to hide in the restroom to cry. Despite this, Myray remains respectful towards her customers. After work, she goes down to the parking garage and encounters an imposing woman sitting in her car. Myray wonders if she's in the wrong spot. Unexpectedly, the woman drives her car directly towards her. Myray thinks it's a customer looking for her, so she rushes to explain. But the woman cuts her off, saying she's from the year 2038 and is Myray's future self. Myray is astonished, her mind reeling, thinking she's encountered a crazy person. The woman tells Myray not to drive today but to take the bus. But Myray doesn't believe her and gets in her car anyway. On the way, Myray remembers the woman's words. After an internal struggle, she changes lanes at the last minute. Right after changing lanes, she hears the sound of a collision from behind. The man who caused the accident is Kim Shin. Arriving home, Myray finds the woman sitting on her sofa. Frightened, she rushes outside, locks the door, and calls the police. While waiting, the woman reveals things only Myray and her family would know. Then, she produces half of a bill that perfectly matches the other half Myray has. Myray starts to believe that the woman really is from the future. The woman explains that her purpose in coming back is to help Myray find a better husband. However, Myray is still not entirely convinced. To persuade her, the woman produces a diary identical to Myray's. This time, she can't help but be surprised. The woman decides to help Myray participate in a company contest, with the prize being a trip to Jedu Island. She instructs Myray to wear a sparkling red dress and perform first. Myray follows her instructions and makes a strong impression, winning first place. On the flight to Jeju, the woman reveals the real reason for the trip, to avoid someone with a fated connection to Myray. If they stay together, Myray's lover will die. This terrifies Myray, but the woman keeps another purpose hidden from her. Upon arriving at the resort, Myray felt no heartache whatsoever upon hearing about her supposed lover. She pulled out her bikini and started to try it on. Her future self, wanting Myray to catch a golden turtle marry rich, pressured her to pass the level 7 civil service exam. Myray sighed at the mountain of study materials, thinking winning the lottery would be easier. However, her future self had never bought a lottery ticket in her life, so she dismissed the idea. She then advised Myray to stay in the room and think about her desired career path while she went out. The future Myray took pictures of Park Si-ju and Seo Kyung to the hotel reception desk, asking if they had seen either of them. However, due to the large number of guests, the receptionist had no particular recollection. The future Myray recalled that in a future interview, Si-ju mentioned falling in love with Seo Kyung at first sight. But she was unaware that in the present, Seo Kyung was hospitalized due to a car accident involving Kim Shin and couldn't travel to Jeju Island. Her true purpose for coming to Jeju Island was to orchestrate a meeting between Park Si-ju and Myray, thus changing her own future. Meanwhile, Myray had a wardrobe malfunction at the pool and couldn't fix it herself. Her future self rushed to help her tie her bikini back on, but then unexpectedly slapped her. Back in their room, a furious Myray demanded to know why she was hit. Her future self explained that she was frustrated with Myray's lack of backbone and scolded her for making excuses for her weakness. The future Myray told her that in a few years, she would be fired from her job, have to rely on her brother, be ridiculed, and ultimately become a lonely old woman. Hearing these harsh words, Myray cried. She confessed that she also wanted to succeed but lacked opportunity. After some reflection, My Ray decided to go to the ocean. Everyone assumed she was going to do something drastic, but instead, she took off her clothes and started swimming with the fish. Unbeknownst to My Ray, her actions were being observed. The observer was none other than the wealthy Park Si-ju. In a future interview, Park Si-ju had said he experienced love at first sight in Jeju. And now, he realized he had fallen for My Ray the moment he saw her. It seems the timeline began to shift from this point. The next morning, My Ray woke up in a soft bed. Her future self berated herself for her harsh words, which almost drove My Ray to despair. But after yesterday's incident, My Ray had a breakthrough. She decided to change herself and strive for better things. The first thing she did after returning was go to her company and pack up her belongings. At the request of a friend, My Ray took a call from the perverted customer. This time, she didn't hold back and unleashed all the pent-up frustration she had endured. This action caused her manager to rush over and intervene. My Ray promptly handed in her resignation letter, declaring that she had a new goal: to pass the Level 7 Civil Service exam and become a television program editor. Upon arriving at the Writers' Training Center, My Ray learned that the current term had ended. Despite doubting her ability to pass the exam, she began studying the tedious textbooks. However, with newfound determination and seriousness, My Ray lost track of time, studying diligently until 3 a.m. On their way back, the future My Ray vehemently tried to dissuade My Ray from pursuing a career as a television screenwriter, because Kim Shin worked at the broadcasting station. Suddenly, the screech of brakes interrupted their conversation. My Ray rushed out of the car to check the situation. The car was damaged, and to her surprise, the owner of the damaged vehicle was Kim Shin. Despite having used a day in the past equivalent to a month of life in the future to travel back in time and prevent their meeting, the future My Ray ultimately failed to stop My Ray and Kim Shin from encountering each other. A fated connection began to develop from this point. Suddenly, My Ray remembered that the car wasn't insured yet. Her brother had also warned her that if anything happened to the car, he would deal with her. The repair costs would be substantial. My Ray feigned a back injury, hoping to get Kim Shin to pay for the car repairs. Unexpectedly, Kim Shin straightened her up, saying, "Someone with a real back injury wouldn't be able to stand up straight like that." He had previously interviewed experts on the subject. Feeling that the situation couldn't be resolved with insurance, Kim Shin suggested they go to the police station. He then ushered My Ray into his car and they exchanged driver's licenses. But just as they stepped into the elevator to go up to the police station, My Ray mentioned that Kim Shin's license had expired a year ago. Seeing this, Kim Shin changed his mind and pulled My Ray back out. My Ray demanded 2 million won in compensation for the car repairs. After a fierce internal debate, Kim Shin decided to go to the police station and confess. Driving without a license and causing an accident were two different matters. Furthermore, Kim Shin wanted to investigate My Ray's responsibility in the accident, so he pulled her towards the police station. But My Ray, overcome with fear, made an excuse to return to the car, started it, and drove away. Kim Shin, unable to start his damaged car, couldn't chase My Ray and became even angrier. In the taxi, he received an anonymous message: "Someday in the future, I will compensate Kim Shin, so please don't contact me." Back home, My Ray was like an ant on a hot pan, fearing her brother would discover the damaged car. At that moment, her brother returned and saw a middle-aged woman in their house. He was unaware that the woman was My Ray from the future. So, My Ray quickly fabricated an identity for her future self. The future My Ray tearfully addressed her brother. Clearly, something had happened in the future that she hadn't revealed to My Ray. My Ray hurriedly pushed her brother into his room to prevent her future self from getting emotional and revealing everything. Her brother demanded the car keys from My Ray. She didn't tell him about the accident, only advising him to be patient. When My Ray returned to her room, her future self warned her not to work at the broadcasting station. If she insisted on working there, she would leave immediately. She gave My Ray 3 days to make a decision. This left My Ray in a difficult position. My Ray's dream was to become a television screenwriter. So, My Ray defied her future self and went to the screenwriting class. But the instructor realized she wasn't a registered student and asked her to leave. My Ray quickly claimed she was a fan of the instructor and only wanted to attend one session to satisfy her admiration. Hearing this, the instructor reluctantly allowed her to stay and continue listening to the lecture. On the other side, Kim Shin grew even more irritated upon receiving Mai Rei's message. He considered turning himself in, but that would jeopardize his career advancement due to driving without a license. He decided to find another way. Kim Shin found numerous phone numbers registered under the name Mai Rei and called them one by one. Finally, he found her number, but she hung up on him. Just then, a colleague was reporting to Kim Shin, coincidentally mentioning that the best way to deal with an enemy is to keep them close, preferably by making them one of your own. An idea suddenly struck Kim Shin. Remembering Mai Rei's dream of becoming a television screenwriter, he texted her, offering her a screenwriting job and telling her to meet him at the broadcasting station. Mai Rei stood at the bus stop, wrestling with the decision of whether or not to go to the station. Ultimately, unable to resist the temptation, she went to the station lobby and met with Kim Shin. He agreed to give her the job on the condition that she confess with him after a year, as he still didn't have a driver's license. Mai Rei expressed that she barely had time to eat, let alone deal with someone else's problems. However, she knew nothing about screenwriting. After talking to a senior colleague, she learned that a script is essentially a blueprint telling the director what and where to film. Completely clueless about writing a script, Mai Rei sought guidance from a senior writer. On the way, she bumped into her brother and quickly turned to flee. He disapproved of her working at the broadcasting station and had repeatedly emphasized his reluctance for her to experience the pressure of the industry. Mai Rei inadvertently hid in Siju's office. Siju recognized her as the girl from that night, the one he had fallen for at first sight. Her brother, searching everywhere, arrived at Siju's office and asked if he had seen his sister. Siju quickly covered for Mai Rei, claiming he hadn't seen anyone. Meanwhile, Mai Rei's aunt was at a matchmaking center, looking for a potential husband for her niece. Suddenly, she received a call from her nephew, informing her that he had seen Mai Rei at the broadcasting station. Furious, the aunt rushed to the station reception desk to inquire. Just then, she ran into Mai Rei. Upon seeing the Keybowl heir Siju, the aunt seemed to radiate an aura of romantic ambition. She disregarded her age, channeling her younger self's charm to captivate Siju. After countless hardships, she finally saw a glimmer of hope. The aunt suddenly recalled a future interview where Siju had mentioned working at his family's broadcasting station to understand the television industry. Siju, looking at Mai Rei, told the aunt that he didn't currently have a girlfriend and hadn't experienced love at first sight. Overjoyed, the aunt quickly pulled Mai Rei aside. She told Mai Rei that Siju was a very wealthy Keybowl, the only one who could transform her from a sparrow into a phoenix. She assigned Mai Rei the task of seducing Siju and then hurriedly pushed her away. After Mai Rei left, the aunt took out a picture of her husband and apologized. She didn't want to live like this anymore. It was clear that something sorrowful awaited her in the future. Mai Rei found Siju in the library. He pulled out the script she had written and complimented her, saying it was quite interesting. Siju recalled the night he had been captivated by her. They shared a moment of unspoken connection, listening to music together. However, Mai Rei still wondered how a Keybowl could be working as a regular employee at the broadcasting station. Meanwhile, Kim Shin, seeing Mai Rei's script, wanted to call and scold her, but no one could reach her at that moment. Mai Rei received a call from her aunt and said something strange. Overhearing the conversation, Kim Shin suspected a premeditated plan. Thinking about his expired driver's license, he rushed down to the lobby to confront the aunt. The aunt, looking at the man who would almost kill her in the future, glared at him with hatred. She then uttered strange words that solidified Kim Shin's belief that she and Mai Rei were plotting to hit him with a car. He figured that, having discovered his expired license, they would use it to threaten him and control his life for the sake of justice and peace. Kim Shin ordered his entire team to find Mai Rei and get her out of the station. However, at that moment, the two women were talking at cross purposes, completely misaligned in their understanding of the situation. As Mai Rei descended in the elevator, she ran into her brother. He dragged her to a meeting room to interrogate her. He wanted her to leave the station immediately, but the female screenwriter praised Mai Rei's script, saying she couldn't leave at this time. Hearing this, her brother relented, telling her to finish the project and then leave. However, as soon as he left, the female screenwriter expressed her discomfort with Mai Rei being older than her. She wanted Mai Rei to quit, On her first day, Mai Ray faced opposition from her family and rejection from her colleague, leaving her utterly discouraged. Mai Ray quickly regained her composure and decided to find another broadcasting station to pursue her dream. But as she entered a room, a glass of cold water was thrown in her face. Kim Shin demanded to know her battle plan. He decided he would turn himself in that night, refusing to let Mai Ray and her mother control his life. Remembering the previous accident, Mai Ray asked Kim Shin if he was the one who caused the accident in Lane 3. He was, after all, her future husband. This confirmed for Mai Ray that Kim Shin would be the one to kill her in the future. Determined to retaliate, she resolved to show everyone she wasn't a pushover. Seeing Mai Ray crying in the makeup room, Jeju went in to comfort her. Mai Ray tried to hide her emotions, but her tears flowed freely. They went to a snack bar to drink and unwind. As soon as they sat down, Mai Ray launched into a furious rant. Jeju patiently listened to her complaints. As Mai Ray stood up to leave, she realized she had left her laptop in the meeting room. Kim Shin learned that Mai Ray was fired because of her age. This reminded him of what the station president had said to him before. He too had been removed from his 7 o'clock anchor position due to age. Mai Ray returned to the meeting room to retrieve her belongings. A news meeting was in progress. She found her laptop under the table and had to lie down to reach it, struggling to pull it out from under the chair's wheels. Seeing the indifferent, cold gazes of everyone present, Mai Ray reminded Kim Shin of her persistence and dedication to this job. As she grabbed her bag to leave, Kim Shin called her back, wanting to hear her news story idea. Mai Ray suggested he interview an elderly man who ran a charity selling stationery but habitually splashed water on reporters who came to interview him. She didn't miss the opportunity to criticize Kim Shin's arrogance, suggesting he sacrifice his image a little. Everyone on the team found the suggestion absurd. To their surprise, however, Kim Shin agreed. He even assigned Mai Ray as the writer for the piece. When they got home, Mai Ray's aunt told her to stay away from Kim Shin at the broadcasting station. Mai Ray felt that Jeju was the keyball, and Kim Shin was a killer, but she had no evidence to support her claims. She even suggested her aunt see a psychiatrist. The conversation ended unpleasantly. At work the next morning, the bespectacled colleague grabbed Mai Ray's hand, touching her while asking questions. Jeju, witnessing this, intervened and brought her to a workstation opposite his own. He offered to finish the rest of the script so Mai Ray could focus on the project. Unable to start brainstorming, Mai Ray wanted to refer to previous ideas. She quietly asked Jeju to borrow them, but the female screenwriter overheard and snapped, saying she was in charge of those projects. So why was Mai Ray asking someone else? She told Mai Ray to dig through the trash if she wanted them. After rummaging through the bin, Mai Ray found the documents she needed. With the script completed, the team went to the grumpy old man's stationery store. Outside the store, Kim Shin introduced himself and requested an interview, only to be met with repeated splashes of cold water to the face. The camera crew, standing at a distance, looked on with amusement. Kim Shin tried to reason with the old man, but he was chased away with a broom. Furious, Kim Shin started spitting in frustration. Knowing the old man loved dogs, Mai Ray brought a puppy and a box of toys. They played with the puppy in front of the store, catching the old man's attention. Mai Ray casually threw a ball to the old man's own dog, leading him to believe they were fellow dog lovers. Finally, he allowed them to film inside. Back at the station, they reviewed the interview. Mai Ray asked Kim Shin if what he'd said about his family during the interview was true. Kim Shin pulled Mai Ray's chair closer and told her to look into his eyes and decide for herself. After a few seconds of eye contact, a flustered Mai Ray prepared to look away. Unexpectedly, Kim Shin lifted her chin, looked into her eyes, and said he saw one word there: ill-fated. He told her to stay away from him. Mai Ray laughed at Kim Shin's teasing. He then, assuming a senior colleague role, put his arm around her to point out a funny moment in the video, a single woman for 32 years. Mai Ray felt overwhelmed by the mature man's masculine energy. Before leaving, Kim Shin affectionately ruffled Mai Ray's hair. Later, while reminiscing about the hair ruffling incident, Mai Ray suddenly remembered she hadn't washed her hair in 3 days and rushed to the restroom. While washing her hair, she was shocked to see her aunt working there as a cleaner. Her aunt told Mai Ray that if she didn't change her destiny, Kim Shin would become the aunt's husband. She had investigated Kim Shin's previous car accident. Kim Shin had changed the future. The person he hit was Seo Kyung. Mai Rei went to the company and asked her colleague if Seo Kyung was Kim Shin's girlfriend. Just then, a radiant woman appeared, bringing pastries and greeting everyone in the room. This was the Seo Kyung Mai Rei was curious about. When the two met, the air crackled with tension. After exchanging greetings, they asked each other's age as a gesture of friendliness. Seo Kyung, upon seeing Kim Shin, became very enthusiastic, making Mai Rei slightly jealous. That evening, Seo Kyung and Siju were discussing work in a room. Seo Kyung deliberately exposed her attractive legs, attempting to seduce Siju. However, Siju wordlessly took his jacket and covered her legs. Annoyed, Seo Kyung threw the jacket off and teased him. Siju explained that he hadn't slept all night and was tired, so he advised her to focus on work before he said something he might regret. He then retrieved the jacket and covered her legs again. At this moment, Mai Rei called Siju outside. The two laughed and talked by the door, further infuriating Seo Kyung. Seo Kyung began discreetly investigating the relationship between Mai Rei and Siju. Knowing Seo Kyung was pursuing Siju, Mai Rei confronted her about her relationship with Kim Shin. Seo Kyung implied that having multiple men was a good thing. Determined not to lose both men to Seo Kyung, Mai Rei rushed to her aunt. She discussed the Seo Kyung and asked for advice. Her aunt agreed to help only if Mai Rei swore to stay away from Kim Shin. Mai Rei adamantly vowed not to even glance at Kim Shin. Her aunt then revealed a keyword related to Siju: water. However, she didn't know the specific details and couldn't elaborate, only advising Mai Rei to find a way to seduce Siju. Mai Rei intentionally asked Siju for a ride. On the way, she kept thinking about her aunt's words. Believing Siju would fall in love at first sight and that it involved water, she grabbed a bottle of water in the car and attempted what she thought was a seductive move, nearly injuring herself in the process. Siju, wanting to wash his car, took Mai Rei to an automatic car wash. Watching the water spray against the car, Mai Rei suddenly had an idea. She opened the sunroof. Water poured in, soaking both of them. They had to return to the company drenched. Due to the awkwardness, they shared a blanket. Mai Rei's wet clothes revealed a scar on her shoulder. Siju recalled being on Jedu Island when a security guard rushed to save Mai Rei. He had carried her back to her room. They were happily chatting when Kim Shin saw them from outside the door. At that moment, a man in a suit also time-traveled, landing in the same year as when Mai Rei's aunt had visited Kim Shin's time. In an instant, time reversed from Kim Shin's most recent encounters all the way back to his first accident. He discovered that it wasn't Seo Kyung he had hit, but Mai Rei. Furthermore, they had become lovers in that timeline. Kim Shin distinctly remembered a scar on her shoulder. Kim Shin abruptly woke from this strange dream. The next morning, encountering Mai Rei in the elevator, he intentionally glanced at her shoulder. To his astonishment, he saw the same scar from his dream. Stunned, he saw Mai Rei and Siju hugging and celebrating while he was reading a news article about the kind old man. Kim Shin angrily slammed the table, warning them not to develop a romantic relationship at work. However, he then began to doubt himself, wondering if he was losing his mind. Despite his internal conflict, he couldn't help but secretly observe their progress. That evening, his aunt dragged Mai Rei to her room, drew the curtains, and revealed her plan. She wanted Mai Rei to marry Siju, believing it was the only way she could transform from a crow into a phoenix in the future. Mai Rei found it slightly amusing, but her aunt spoke with intense seriousness. She explained that her time in the present was limited to a month. She risked traveling back in time, possibly due to a space-time anomaly, to change her destiny. If Mai Rei didn't try to change things, Siju would end up with Seo Kyung, leaving her aunt alone forever. Mai Rei pondered her aunt's words and remembered Seo Kyung's confession of wanting to pursue Park Siju. This made Mai Rei feel slightly uneasy, and she fell asleep. She and Kim Shin shared the same dream, a dream of intimacy, which was interrupted by the sudden appearance of Kim Shin's brother. Both were jolted awake by the dream. The next morning, Mai Rei encountered Kim Shin at the company, greeted him, and left. However, remembering last night's dream, Kim Shin checked on Mai Rei. Knowing she was headed to the CG room, he offered to take her there via a shorter route. After she finished her work, he proactively took her on a tour of the broadcasting station. Coincidentally, they bumped into his brother, who was getting a haircut. Both were startled and quickly closed the door and left. They went to the prop room. Kim Shin put on a leather armor costume, while Mai Ray wore a snow-white costume. While discussing their characters, Mai Ray accidentally got her hair caught in the zipper of her dress. As Kim Shin tried to untangle it, Mai Ray turned around, her sleeve getting caught in Kim Shin's armor. He used scissors to cut it free, but Mai Ray scolded him for it. Kim Shin then showed off his surprising sewing skills, leaving Mai Ray amazed. Feeling a little awkward, Mai Ray received a phone call and tried to leave, but Kim Shin stopped her, using work as an excuse to invite her to the zoo. Mai Ray happily agreed. Meanwhile, the broadcasting station's president was furious about employee mistakes that caused a customer allergic reaction. She angrily threw eggs at them and decided to plan the dismissal of several employees. Her aunt, looking through her old diary, discovered she was slated for dismissal due to company restructuring in her youth. She rushed to the company to meet Mai Ray, but Mai Ray was busy with her screenwriting and didn't notice her. Her aunt blocked Mai Ray's path with a garbage truck and questioned her about her progress with Jeju. She also warned Mai Ray about her impending dismissal, emphasizing that even desperate measures would be futile. Mai Ray, unfazed, quickly left. Her aunt suddenly felt her body rapidly aging, fueling her anxiety. At noon, Mai Ray and Jeju were discussing a new script. Mai Ray offered many ideas, but Jeju found them uninspired. Even passers-by thought Mai Ray was ridiculous. Mai Ray, furious, started ranting and spitting. Luckily, Jeju managed to stop her. Kim Shin and Seo Kyung returned from lunch and saw the two arguing. Jeju and Mai Ray's close proximity sparked a touch of jealousy in Kim Shin. Seo Kyung, finding this amusing, pulled Kim Shin over. He stormed over and yelled at them, causing Mai Ray to fall to the ground in fright. At that moment, the president called Kim Shin, informing him of her intention to restructure the company's personnel. The team learned that only the director and one assistant could remain. Jeju, deeming her grandmother's restructuring unfair, sought her out to persuade her. Disguised as a cleaning lady, she eavesdropped on their conversation. Overhearing the president's reliance on fortune-telling, Jeju's grandmother devised a new plan. Finding Mai Ray listlessly sitting in the park, she advised Mai Ray to give up her screenwriting career and pursue Jeju instead, promising her a comfortable life. However, Mai Ray was determined to persevere and refused to rely on a man for happiness. Their differing viewpoints led to an unhappy parting. Before the morning show's broadcast, everyone awaited the president's announcement of the layoffs. The president addressed each person individually. Kim Shin publicly opposed the layoffs, threatening a company-wide strike if the president proceeded. Seeing the impending broadcast, Kim Shin engaged the president in a discussion about restructuring, forcing her to agree, under pressure of the live broadcast, not to fire anyone. Everyone was captivated by Kim Shin, Mai Ray included, her eyes shining with admiration. Jeju's grandmother, reflecting on her younger self, felt her life was truly over. She hurriedly opened her diary, a new idea forming. Remembering the president's search for a fortune teller, she pretended to pass by the cafeteria. Mai Ray cheerfully offered her grandmother bubble tea, excitedly sharing the news of her becoming a full-time screenwriter. Her grandmother inquired about the show's guests, and Mai Ray confirmed they were all set. However, she soon received calls from the guests, one by one, canceling due to the fortune teller's unavailability. The lead screenwriter was extremely worried. Jeju's grandmother feigned concern, allowing the screenwriter to recognize her as the fortune teller she had previously consulted. The screenwriter, without hesitation, took her to change clothes and go to the broadcasting room. On the show, Kim Shin stated his belief that people either believe in fortune-telling or don't, declaring himself a non-believer. Jeju's grandmother then revealed details from Kim Shin's childhood and his habit of reading dictionaries in the morning, information from her diary. This surprised Kim Shin, momentarily stunning him, though he insisted fortune tellers only know the past, not the future. She then predicted his dismissal from the television station, a future of indolence, and constant arguments with his wife. Kim Shin dismissed it as nonsense and abruptly ended the segment. Mai Ray frantically pursued Jeju's grandmother, questioning the accuracy of her predictions. The grandmother confirmed the prediction about Kim Shin's downfall. Kim Shin called Mai Ray, reminding her of their meeting. Jedu also called, suggesting they meet. Jedu's grandmother told him to decide for himself. After a fierce internal struggle, Mai finally made her decision. Jedu chose a date with Mai for the following day. On the bus ride home, Mai received a call from Kim Shin, who invited her to a training class the next afternoon. Meanwhile, her grandmother, walking on the street, suddenly experienced severe shortness of breath and fainted. The chairman happened to be passing by, saw her collapse, and rushed her home. The doctor informed the chairman that her grandmother was aging rapidly. The chairman, believing this was a case of precognitive ability activating, wanted her grandmother to reveal any future events. Her grandmother told the chairman, "Look out the window tonight, you'll see something amazing." She then took Kim Shin to a designated location and gave him an umbrella. As soon as he received it, it began to rain. She then texted Mai, instructing her to bring her brother to the highest point in the neighborhood. The chairman, looking out the window at the time his grandmother specified, witnessed a large tower in the distance collapse, astonishing everyone present. Mai's brother was so shocked he almost passed out. Kim Shin finally believed his grandmother could predict the future. He called his grandmother, berating her for not telling him beforehand so he could film the event and post it as breaking news. She told him a subway station would catch fire the day after tomorrow, resulting in over 100 casualties caused by an arsonist wearing a red hat. She instructed him to film the event and get an exclusive story for the news, ensuring it would be a hot item. Trusting her grandmother's words, Mai rushed to the subway station to warn the security personnel, but they dismissed her claims, believing she was drunk. Her brother called a colleague, asking him to check recent CCTV footage for anyone wearing a red hat acting suspiciously. His colleague initially dismissed it as a joke, but reluctantly checked the footage and saw someone about to commit arson. With everyone at a loss, Jedu suggested using live television to broadcast from the subway station and contacted Kou Kyung to obtain permission from the station manager. Jedu had already contacted the management but didn't want to reveal his keyball identity. Mai's brother quickly assigned tasks, some to report the incident to the fire department, others to prepare ambulances at the hospital. Everything seemed in order, but the subway's fire suppression system was malfunctioning. The station manager called a plumber to fix a sprinkler head. Once the manager left, the plumber put on a red hat. Mai and Kim Shin went to the subway station, and the hidden cameras were ready for the live broadcast. Time was running out. Her brother urgently asked his grandmother if the location was accurate. She recalled the news report and confirmed it wasn't the station itself, but the train. Everyone was prepared at the station, but not on the train. Mai then spotted a man in a red hat on the train. Kim Shin told her not to worry, it hadn't reached the station yet. Suddenly, the man in the red hat threw gasoline on the floor. Panic ensued as people scattered. The man in the red hat gave a near-maniacal laugh and threw a lighter onto the gasoline. A raging fire erupted. A man in a red hat ran to another train car to continue pouring gasoline. Kim Shin, horrified, chased the red-hatted man onto the train. Mai followed closely behind, live-streaming the scene on her mobile phone. The driver pulled the emergency brake, stopping the train prematurely. Passengers frantically fled. Mai's colleagues were stopped by police outside. Everyone anxiously inquired about the situation inside, only to learn that the water system was unusable due to a lack of water. Apparently, the tank valve had been shut off by the arsonist. Under Jedu's guidance, they rushed to the water room, only to find the water valve locked with a heavy iron chain and padlock. It turned out the plumber was the red-hatted man. He had shut off all the valves beforehand. The red-hatted man was cornered by Kim Shin, and the two engaged in a struggle. Mai, filming the entire event, cheered Kim Shin on. "Go, Kim Shin, everyone's watching the live stream." The intense struggle was gripping viewers. The red-hatted man eventually escaped and continued to pour gasoline. He tried to light it, but the lighter wouldn't ignite. He threw the lighter towards Kim Shin and Mai. Kim Shin shielded Mai, but she was accidentally hit by a falling advertising board. Kim Shin wanted to stop and help her, but Mai insisted he continue chasing the red-hatted man, urging him to keep filming. After a few turns, the red-hatted man slipped on the gasoline he'd spilled. The police arrived and apprehended him. Kim Shin successfully live-streamed the entire ordeal, But My Ray was in grave danger because sparks from the broken advertising board were flying amidst the gasoline-soaked ground. Jeju and Seo Kyung worked to unlock the water valve, and finally, it opened just as My Ray was rescued by Kim Shin. The water sprayed, extinguishing the flames. Jeju rushed to check on My Ray, only to find them sitting together under the rain, talking and laughing. Seeing this, Jeju quietly left. Everyone urged Kim Shin to conclude his broadcast. He stated that knowing the future's fate is advantageous, but the future changes based on one's choices. The chairman, having watched the entire event on TV, informed his subordinates that Kim Shin's show would continue airing. The team celebrated, believing Kim Shin had changed and was no longer self-centered. At that moment, Kim Shin was seen as truly changed. Even if he and My Ray didn't end up together, he was no longer arrogant. Later, while My Ray was waiting for a ride, a bar employee forcefully grabbed her hand, trying to pull her inside. My Ray politely refused, but he wouldn't let go. Just as the situation escalated, Kim Shin arrived, reprimanded the employee, and escorted My Ray away. While walking, Kim Shin took My Ray's hand. She felt his warmth and was overjoyed. An older woman, witnessing this from afar, thought their difficult relationship was truly unbreakable. Jeju found My Ray in the lobby making a phone call. My Ray asked Jeju to sit beside her. She thanked him for his efforts in opening the water valve, saying it saved her life. Jeju jokingly complained that he was sore from all the running around and asked if anyone would offer him a hand massage. My Ray told him to turn around before she changed her mind. They talked and laughed, just as Kim Shin arrived and saw My Ray and Jeju's intimate interaction, sparking his jealousy. He hesitated for a moment but still called them over. Just then, his phone rang, so Jeju went into the restaurant with Kim Shin first. After greeting everyone at the restaurant and seeing Jeju's position inside, he found an excuse to sit next to him. Then he whispered to Jeju that he would keep his secret. It turned out that the previous night, Jedu Kyung attended a high society party and accidentally discovered Jeju's wealthy background. While everyone was enjoying themselves, a colleague's phone rang. It was the bureau chief complaining that they hadn't shared such good news with his side and kept it for their own broadcast. He angrily ordered them to edit the material and hand it over to him for broadcasting. Everyone was furious with the bureau chief's behavior, so Kim Shin proposed a new program. Afterward, Kim Shin and his brother went to the chairman to present their idea, only to meet with strong opposition. Seeing this, Kim Shin told his brother to go to the countryside to film the program they created. Considering Kim Shin's overnight fame from the subway accident, the chairman, to keep them at the company, agreed to their request. However, the condition was that they had to do a test run of the program for her review. That evening, My Ray and Kim Shin, both holding their phones, simultaneously summoned the courage to call each other, but both received unavailable messages. My Ray tried calling again. They scheduled a meeting for the next day. Their grandmother overheard everything and tried to prevent My Ray from continuing her relationship with Kim Shin, leading to an argument and her angry departure. At that moment, the man in black from the future arrived and found their grandmother. She turned around, startling both of them. Terrified, she ran, and a black car pulled up. She was dragged inside. It was the chairman who found her. Their grandmother intentionally mentioned to the chairman that she had seen her grandson's future. This successfully piqued the chairman's curiosity. To avoid pursuit from the man from the future, she asked to stay at the chairman's house for a while. She then told the chairman that her grandson had a significant other, but that person absolutely couldn't be a reporter. However, she didn't reveal the person's identity. To keep an eye on things, she continued working as a cleaner and asked the chairman to assign a bodyguard to her. The man from the future, observing her from outside with binoculars, noticed the bodyguard and hurriedly reported to his superior, only to be harshly reprimanded. In the morning, Seo Kyung met My Ray at the office and invited her to a bar that evening for drinks. My Ray had intended to refuse, but she really couldn't withstand Seo Kyung's persistent nagging, so she reluctantly agreed in the end. As it turns out, Seo Kyung knew about Jeju's feelings for My Ray, so she encouraged him to actively pursue his love and even came up with an idea for him. Seo Kyung, on the surface, seemed to want to help Jeju, but secretly hoped that the two of them wouldn't get together, because she also had ambitions of climbing the social ladder. The old lady found out about Seo Kyung's ulterior motives and told Seo Yu Kyung that her soulmate was Kim Shin, in order to create an opportunity for the two of them to get together. The old lady also knew that Seo Kyung wanted Mai-rae to reject Siju so that she would have a chance. So she prevented this by telling Kim Shin that Mai-rae had a date with him at the bar that evening. Since Mai-rae's cell phone was broken, she asked the old lady to send the message. Kim Shin misunderstood, thinking that Mai-rae had something planned. When Mai-rae arrived at the bar, she immediately saw Siju had set up a romantic confession. Just as Siju was about to express his love with a bouquet of flowers, Kim Shin suddenly appeared. He was furious when he saw everything, and even spoke sarcastically to Mai-rae. Afterwards, he congratulated the two of them and turned to leave. Mai-rae put the flowers down on a chair and quickly chased after Kim Shin to explain. However, Kim Shin was resentful, accusing her of playing two sides and harshly berating Mai-rae. Mai-rae, in anger, turned and left. In the end, the two of them broke up. Siju sat alone drinking, and his friends advised him not to care about Mai-rae anymore, but he became angry and lashed out at them. At this moment, Mai-rae called and asked Seo Kyung to pass on her apologies to Siju, but Seo Kyung simply told him that Mai-rae couldn't make it. Siju was disappointed and continued drinking alone. Kim Shin was walking down the street when he saw a TV show and Mai-rae's sweet smile, which made him remember his feelings for her. Meanwhile, Siju decided to actively meet with Kim Shin to clear things up. Seo Yu Kyung met with Mai-rae, blaming her for hurting Siju and demanding that Mai-rae call him to clearly define their relationship. When Mai-rae called, Siju was talking to Kim Shin about her. Kim Shin initially disregarded Siju, thinking he was just a lowly employee, but Siju revealed that he was a shareholder of the broadcasting station. Kim Shin didn't believe him, and even jokingly suggested a doctor to treat Siju's delusions of grandeur. Not wanting to argue with Kim Shin, Siju turned and left, calling his secretary to reinstate his identity. After a month, Kim Shin began to reflect on Siju's words. He called a colleague to get Siju's resume and discovered he had studied for 5 years at film school. At the same time, Kim Shin researched Siju's family history and seemed to realize something. At this point, Kim Shin's older brother came to ask him to help Mai-rae successfully execute the haunted house program. This was Mai-rae's first time taking on the project, so his older brother hoped that Kim Shin would accompany her to support her. At this moment, Mai-rae, following the shop owner's suggestion, discovered a haunted house that was considered one of the top 10 scariest in the world. This discovery sparked excitement in the female screenwriter who was struggling with writer's block. Mai-rae approached the screenwriter and asked to be put in charge of the project. Her brother and the screenwriter discussed it and decided to give her a chance. Although her brother outwardly said he didn't want Mai-rae to take on the project by herself, he still took his sister to a clothing store to buy her appropriate attire. Because the haunted house was located on a hill, it would get very cold there after sunset. Locals said that every full moon, a woman in a wedding dress would sit by the window waving. In addition, people had heard mournful cries every night, as if someone was going insane. They speculated that the husband had murdered his wife. While Mai-rae was asking the locals about the haunted house, she slipped and fell. A sharp pain made her wince, and what's more, her leg caught on a flame, and her sock caught fire. Mai-rae quickly extinguished the fire, but the sock and the skin of her leg had fused together. She took out a silk scarf to bandage her wound, and then tried her best to endure the pain to return to the filming location. Her colleagues said goodbye to Mai-rae and Kim Shin, leaving the two to experience the haunted house overnight. They finally reached the house before nightfall. Looking at the gloomy house ahead, they both took a deep breath. Mai-rae tried to bear the pain as she entered the silent and creepy house. The two opened the door and stepped inside. In the darkness, Kim Shin suddenly saw a red face next to him and screamed. But it turned out to be just a camera that the film crew had set up beforehand. While going up the stairs, Mai-rae accidentally aggravated her leg injury. Kim Shin quickly checked her wound. He worriedly scolded Mai-rae for keeping it to herself despite being so badly hurt. However, Mai-rae said that this was a hard-won opportunity, and since she was older, she needed to work hard. Hearing this, Kim Shin could only give her first aid. Afterwards, the two looked at each other with deep affection. Kim Shin slowly leaned in to kiss Mai Ray, but at that moment, Mai Ray suddenly remembered what the old lady had said: if they were together, one of them would die. So, she quickly avoided Kim Shin's kiss. To ease the awkward situation, Kim Shin suggested they continue working. They looked through a remaining diary of the house's owner, from which they learned that the place was not haunted as rumored, but was instead the site of a tragic love story. The husband in the house had terminal cancer and was in so much pain that he often screamed. The wife had taken care of him devotedly, but in the end, the husband could not bear the suffering of his illness and chose to commit suicide. Before he died, he left a letter for his wife, wishing her happiness. However, the wife, missing her husband, decided to follow him. Knowing the sad love story of this couple, Mai Ray thought of herself. If she and Kim Shin were together, would they repeat the tragedy of the couple? In less than a month, the old lady's hair had turned completely silver, causing passers-by to look at her with astonishment. She hurried to a mirror and looked at herself. Seeing her white hair, she knew that her time was running short. She immediately sought out her brother to confess everything. However, her brother told her that Mai Ray and Kim Shin were at the haunted house filming. The old lady scolded her brother, asking why he had let them stay together overnight. Then, crying, she told her brother that Kim Shin and Mai Ray would decide to get married after staying in the haunted house. But after getting married, Kim Shin would have an affair, so she had come back to change these events. Hearing what the old lady said, her brother didn't believe her. He rushed to return to the company, but the old lady suddenly revealed a secret that only her brother knew. That is, when the old lady got married, her brother had confessed to her that he was the one who had caused the scar on her shoulder when she was little. Only their father and her brother knew this. At this point, her brother received a call from the broadcasting station, requesting his immediate return. At the company, looking out the window and seeing Mai Ray and Kim Shin playing together, he suddenly remembered what the old lady had said and sank deep into thought. In the evening, her brother returned home to ask the old lady about her true identity and to take his hair for a DNA test. The old lady told him what would happen in the future. Kim Shin would be unable to recover after being fired by the broadcasting station. Therefore, his wife had to work 3 jobs to pay his contract breach penalty. The old lady recounted that she often worked until morning before coming home, but Kim Shin didn't care. Her brother couldn't believe it when he saw the genetic report in his hand and felt he couldn't sit still any longer. He grabbed his family registry and went to find Kim Shin, bluntly warning him not to approach Mai Ray again. Otherwise, he wouldn't hesitate to throw a punch at Kim Shin. Afterwards, her brother sought out Mai Ray and advised her to work at a different company. Mai Ray called Kim Shin and arranged to meet him in the park to discuss it. Kim Shin arrived at the meeting spot, and when Mai Ray asked his opinion about leaving, he just coldly said, "Decide for yourself. Moreover, after going to a new place, there's no need to contact me anymore." Upon hearing this, Mai Ray left in sorrow. On her way, she ran into Jedu. He asked her if she really wanted to leave. Mai Ray explained that her brother, who was also the team leader, had made the decision. Jedu affectionately took her hand and told her not to leave because he really wanted to work with her. Afterwards, the two went to a convenience store for instant noodles and happened to be seen by Seo Kyung. Seo Kyung pretended to cheer Jedu on, but inside, she was heartbroken. She turned and left. Meanwhile, Jedu and Mai Ray happily returned to the company. However, they overheard a colleague mocking Mai Ray's idea, and even turning her love documentary into a horror film. This colleague also failed to credit Mai Ray, intentionally trying to usurp her role as screenwriter, making everyone feel indignant on Mai Ray's behalf. Jedu immediately urged his colleague, "Apologize to Mai Ray." But the colleague looked down on him, believing Jedu was just a cameraman. He threatened that if he said a word, Jedu would be fired on the spot. Jedu didn't want to say anything more to this guy, and silently decided that as soon as he took office, he would fire him immediately. After that, he comforted Mai Ray and then turned and left with great poise. Mai Ray held the draft she had written over several nights, wanting the colleague to take a look, but he just mocked her and walked away. Mai Ray's leg injury was very serious. When she disinfected it with alcohol, the pain was excruciating. Jedu quietly gave her clean gauze and went with her to the hospital for treatment. When the two returned to the broadcasting station, everyone was live broadcasting Mai Ray's ideas. The colleague was excitedly standing by directing. His actions made everyone dissatisfied. When the broadcast ended, Kim Shin told the sad love story of the haunted house instead of reading the colleague's script. The colleague was furious, but Mai Ray at this moment was tearing up. She excitedly ran to find Kim Shin, but he had already left. Mai Ray called Kim Shin. The phone rang, but he just drove past the company gate, seeing her but not stopping. He thought about what Mai Ray's brother had said and was determined to leave. He didn't want his stubbornness to cause Mai Ray to live unhappily in the future. That night, everyone anxiously awaited the ratings, because this result would determine whether the show would continue or not. Kim Shin opened his familiar dictionary, but the first word he read was end. Not believing it, he opened it again, but still only saw meaningless lines. In the morning, his older brother slowly announced the results, 10.2%. The two brothers happily hugged each other. The whole team kept watch by the phone, waiting for the call from the chairman. When the phone rang, the chairman announced that the show would continue. Everyone was thrilled. Si-ju called the old lady, asking her to help him pursue Mai Ray. Seo-kyung happened to overhear, but the old lady advised her to give up on Si-ju because the game is over. Seo-kyung remembered accidentally meeting the old lady at the supermarket, when she saw a diary that looked like her own. She secretly went to the old lady's dressing room and found a diary recording their past and present lives. Upon reading it, Seo-kyung realized that everything was the old lady's scheme, from the first car accident to how the wealthy heir Si-ju would marry her. Seo-kyung was extremely angry and decided to expose this scheme. She secretly tore out a page from the diary. The old lady returned to the room, saw Seo-kyung holding her diary and quickly snatched it back, saying it was just a notebook she wrote in when she was bored. The next day, Seo-kyung went to the office, secretly photographed Mai Ray's diary, and sent the torn page from the old lady's diary for testing to see if they were related and how many years apart they were. Seo-kyung followed the old lady and discovered that she was meeting with the chairman. Afterwards, the old lady walked down the street, remembering her happy memories with Kim Shin. She stopped at the bar they used to go to, listened to their familiar song, sat in their old seat, and couldn't hold back her tears. The man from the future stood outside the door, and seeing this scene, he was also moved. Seo-kyung saw this man crying and wanted to ask why he was following the old lady, but he quickly ran away, causing her to chase after him. The man from the future hurriedly hid in the kitchen behind the restaurant. Seo-kyung waited outside. When the man cautiously peeked his head out, seeing that there was no longer any danger, he called his superior and complained about the people here. This made Seo-kyung very suspicious. Afterward, the research lab called to say that the writing on the torn page and the photograph were from the same person, but the paper was 25 years older. Seo-kyung immediately sought out Si-ju to tell him about all of this, and to tell him that the old lady was from the future. But Si-ju found the story comical and didn't believe Seo-kyung. He told Seo-kyung that it might be a coincidence, so she shouldn't overthink it. Just then, cheering from the room attracted their attention. It turned out that the subway accident had caused a public outcry, so they had won an award from the emergency board. Mai Ray continued to use the press to gather leads and investigate the karaoke bar that was producing counterfeit alcohol. In order to infiltrate the counterfeit alcohol production site, Mai Ray cut her hair and made herself up to look like a completely different person. She also bought glasses with a built-in video camera. She went to the alcohol production site to apply for a job and was assigned to the kitchen. Although her brother gave her a sharp look when he found out about this, her colleagues were very supportive of Mai Ray's idea, so she was still allowed to go to the counterfeit alcohol production site to work. Si-ju visited her as a customer. Mai Ray asked about everyone in the office and if they were doing well. She had only been away for 3 days but already missed them a little. Si-ju, knowing that she missed Kim Shin, told her that Kim Shin was also doing very well. They barely exchanged a few words when Mai Ray, using the excuse that she might get caught, quickly returned to her work. Kim Shin had just arrived outside the bar when a waiter recognized him. The waiter thanked Kim Shin because his mother had also been on the subway when the accident happened, so Kim Shin was the savior who had rescued his mother. Kim Shin told him that the waiter was actually his younger sister, so he asked the waiter to take care of Mai Ray and left his phone number. The news spread quickly, and Mai Ray's colleagues all knew she was Kim Shin's younger sister, so they scrambled to try and curry favor with her. Ray, not wanting her identity to be exposed, quickly tried to win them over with her hand cream while they were washing fruit. That day, a counterfeit alcohol factory worker was taken out due to alcohol poisoning. Ray intentionally knocked over some items to attract the manager's attention. He immediately called her inside. The old auntie quickly defended Ray, saying she was new and didn't understand, and asked for her to be left alone. But Ray said she could handle it. The two argued, making the manager angry, and he made both of them go inside the room. The manager told the old auntie to search Ray to see if she had anything strange on her. Ray had put a listening device in her apron, and the old auntie quickly felt it. But Ray subtly signaled to the auntie to help her hide it. The old auntie was terrified, but she still told the manager that she didn't find anything. The man in the brown shirt came in and told Ray to change her apron to mix the alcohol. While mixing the alcohol, Ray moved slowly and mechanically, which attracted the attention of the man in the yellow shirt. He quickly realized that Ray's glasses were problematic, and he snatched them off, examining them closely to discover that they were a mini recording device. He then violently smashed them. The old auntie hurriedly knelt down, begging for forgiveness, but they kicked her out. Before she left, the auntie took Ray's apron, which contained the listening device, and left. The waiter, seeing the old lady come out, knew that Ray was in trouble. He pretended to deliver food and saw Ray tied to a chair. Upon leaving, the waiter quickly called Kim Shin. Kim Shin informed his brother to go with him. Jedu received a call from the old auntie and learned that Ray had been exposed, so he instructed his bodyguard to quickly find some thugs to buy them some time. Seeing the gangsters blocking the entrance, Jedu wanted to get out of the car to handle it himself, but the bodyguard locked him in the car, preventing him from getting out. Meanwhile, Ray was still trying to reason with the manager, making him laugh out loud. The manager said to her, "There's no such thing as evidence in this room." Then, he gave a despicable smile. The subordinate went outside to arrange for Ray to be dealt with but left the door open, causing the manager to angrily get up to close the door, only to be kicked by Ray, causing him to fall to the floor, stunned. Ray quickly stood up, wanting to escape, but the manager grabbed her and threw her back into the room. Just then, the old auntie hit him over the head with a bottle, injuring him and causing him to fall to the ground, unconscious. Ray was finally rescued when the police arrived. They arrested the manager, but he had destroyed all the evidence. The camera in the glasses had also been shattered, so they couldn't find any evidence of him producing counterfeit alcohol. Just when everyone was unsure of what to do, Ray pulled out the necklace she was wearing. It turned out that when she bought the camera glasses, she had also bought a necklace as a precaution. The manager had nothing left to say and was taken away by the police. Her brother still didn't want Ray to write the script, but everyone spoke up for Ray, so her brother finally agreed to let Ray independently complete the program's preparation. However, her brother also hoped his younger sister wouldn't take any more risks in the future. But the chairman didn't agree to broadcast it and wanted to transfer it to the news department. Jedu and Kim Shin went to the chairman's office and spoke well of Ray on her behalf. The chairman clapped his hands in praise of the two, who were once rivals, being able to coordinate so well because of a girl. This also meant that both of them really liked Ray. The chairman was excited to see how the drama would end. Ray's idea, when broadcast, was praised by everyone. But her brother still suspected that the female screenwriter had a hand in it. However, the female screenwriter said that she hadn't helped Ray at all. After the show ended, Jedu went to find Ray and congratulate her. Kim Shin, seeing them talking, left with a heavy heart. Ray, seeing Kim Shin leave, also felt lost. Jedu, following Ray's gaze, saw Kim Shin leave as well. Seo Yu Kyung approached Jedu, encouraging him to express his feelings for Ray so that he could win her heart. Jedu brought a gift to Ray's house, but found no one home. Her aunt told him they had gone to the playground. As he reached the steps, he overheard Ray telling her older brother that she liked Kim Shin. Her brother vehemently objected, but Ray insisted that Kim Shin had changed a lot. Her brother angrily retorted, "If you like Kim Shin, then don't come home." Later, her brother called Kim Shin and arranged a meeting. After the meeting, he told their aunt that he had to make things clear to Kim Shin, or Ray's future would be ruined. He threw a genetic report in front of Kim Shin and told their aunt to explain the future to him. Kim Shin couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the DNA report. The aunt revealed that she had traveled through time and told Kim Shin that she was his future wife. They would have a lovely child together. However, the aunt also revealed that in the future, Kim Shin would be fired from his company and have to pay a hefty penalty for breach of contract. Afterward, due to Kim Shin's stubborn personality, they would constantly argue. Kim Shin would drown himself in alcohol all day, while Mi-rae would shoulder the entire family's expenses. Seeing his sister work so hard, her brother suggested Mi-rae host a small program, but Kim Shin refused. The cost of raising a child led to frequent arguments between them. One day, during a roadside argument, their child wandered into the street alone. Although they both saw the child leave, neither paid attention and continued arguing. Suddenly, a screech of brakes echoed, and their son was gone forever. The aunt recounted everything to Kim Shin, tears streaming down her face. She said she hadn't been able to accept the child's death to this day. When the aunt returned home, exhausted and heartbroken, the older brother hugged Mi-rae and told her to live a happy life. The next day, Mi-rae arranged to have lunch with Kim Shin. During their meal, a child ran near their table and fell. Mi-rae gently helped the child up and checked on him. Seeing this, Kim Shin remembered the aunt's words, "If they stay together, your child will die." At that moment, he received a call from CTM Company, completely confirming the aunt's story. Kim Shin silently made his decision. Mi-rae made a reservation at a fancy restaurant and called Kim Shin repeatedly, but he didn't answer. The following day, Mi-rae ran into Kim Shin on the street and hurriedly asked why he hadn't answered her calls. Kim Shin coldly replied that he was busy and walked away, ignoring her. To celebrate Christmas, everyone in the department decorated their workspace. Seeing all of this made Mi-rae feel melancholic. Suddenly, she received a text from Kim Shin asking to meet at a restaurant. Excited, Mi-rae carefully applied her makeup and hurried to the appointed place. But when she arrived, she found Kim Shin with another beautiful woman. Mi-rae quietly sat at their reserved table, silently watching them talk and laugh. Heartbreak welled up inside her, and she quickly called Kim Shin, but he only glanced at his phone without answering. Seeing this, a devastated Mi-rae left. The next day, they met again on their way to work. Kim Shin bluntly told Mi-rae he didn't like her. Unexpectedly, when she got home, Mi-rae overheard a conversation between her aunt and brother. The sound of a dropped handbag caught their attention. Her aunt then revealed everything to Mi-rae. Since the death of their child, she and Kim Shin had been like strangers. The aunt had placed all the blame for the child's death on Kim Shin. Occasionally, out of frustration, she would pick fights with him, but Kim Shin wouldn't respond, just silently retreating to his room. Consumed by resentment, the aunt had yelled at him, "Why don't you just leave? Just go." After that, Kim Shin left the house and impulsively ran into the street, where he was hit by a truck. After learning the truth, Mi-rae burst into tears. She couldn't believe how cruel she would become in the future. Now she understood why Kim Shin wanted to leave her. The aunt looked at the scar on her foot and hurriedly pulled up her pants leg to check. But there was no scar. Worried, she returned to her room and opened her diary, but found no changes. She rushed to find the man from the future and asked him why she didn't have the same injury as the scar on Mi-rae's foot. The man thought for a moment, then stammered, "As long as you return to the future, everything will change." Then, he hurriedly pulled her away. But the aunt asked him to wait a moment, because she had one last thing to do: find a wife for her brother. The aunt requested that her future sister-in-law be kind, elegant, and especially a good cook. The reluctant matchmaker agreed to her demands, but inwardly thought that this wasn't finding a wife, but a housekeeper. Her aunt told her nephew to come home early one week, promising to cook him a meal. Unexpectedly, the first ones to arrive were Mi-rae and Jedu. Surprised but delighted, the aunt prepared a large meal for everyone to enjoy together. The nephew thought Mi-rae and Jedu were a perfect match. The next day, the aunt took her nephew to a fancy restaurant for a blind date. Watching them from outside, she felt they looked good together and smiled contentedly. Afterwards, she called Kim Shin to meet. She told him she was about to return to her own time and advised him against signing a contract with CTM. She explained that the company's vice president was prejudiced against him and he would face hardships. However, Kim Shin said he would try to adapt to any situation and reassured her not to worry. Back at home, the three of them took a family photo and then playfully joked around. All the aunt's wishes had been fulfilled. She prepared to return to the future with a man in black, but discovered the time machine wasn't the same as when she arrived. It was now a simple elevator. She wanted to call Mai Ray to say a final goodbye. Suddenly, she overheard the man in black reporting to his superior that Mai Ray's life was no longer connected to hers. As she entered the elevator with the man, she realized he didn't know how to operate it and had to consult a code book. She understood that without the book, they couldn't return to the future. While he was distracted, she snatched the book and demanded to know why she didn't have a scar on her foot and why her diary hadn't changed. She threatened to tear up the code book if he didn't explain. Forced to confess, the man revealed the truth. This was just one parallel timeline among many. In another timeline, another Mai Ray might exist. Therefore, nothing the aunt did in this timeline could change her own future. The aunt threw the code book back at him and rushed out of the elevator to find her nephew. She then learned that much had happened in her absence. Jeju had become a broadcasting executive. Kim Shin had resigned and signed with CTM, and Jeju and Mai Ray had officially become a couple. The aunt told her nephew that she and Mai Ray were not the same person. Anything Mai Ray did now wouldn't change her future. Her nephew checked his phone and found information about the theory of the multiverse, meaning there existed another universe where people just like them existed at this very moment. This confirmed that his aunt wasn't the current Mai Ray. However, he decided not to tell Mai Ray, as she was happy. However, Mai Ray was now being subjected to the chairman's manipulation. He told her that if she wanted to become his daughter-in-law, a member of a Keyball family, she needed to immediately quit her job and learn proper etiquette. Mai Ray looked around the vast mansion, but was hesitant to give up her freedom. The next day at work, she overheard her colleagues gossiping about her. It turned out the chairman had orchestrated the situation, hoping the pressure would force Mai Ray to withdraw. Jeju surprised Mai Ray by suggesting they get engaged, catching her completely off guard. That evening, Jeju called Mai Ray, telling her to dress up and meet him at a secret location. While applying perfume, Mai Ray remembered the last time she wore that same scent when she met Kim Shin, which had ended disastrously. The memory made her stop. Upon arriving, Mai Ray unexpectedly ran into Kim Shin at a Keyball social gathering. Jeju deliberately took her hand and introduced her as his girlfriend. Uncomfortable with the atmosphere, they retreated to the rooftop for some fresh air, only to encounter Kim Shin again. Their conversation was brief, distant, and polite. After Mai Ray left, Kim Shin covered his eyes and cried. It seemed to be the ultimate act of love, both hoping for the other's happiness. The next day, the aunt told Kim Shin that what she had previously said wouldn't come true. She urged him to save Mai Ray, as she still couldn't forget him. But Kim Shin replied that it was impossible. The pain he had caused Mai Ray was real, and he couldn't guarantee her future happiness. Back at his company, two detectives approached Kim Shin. They wanted him to publicly expose the carcinogenic ingredients in humidifier disinfectants. However, the manufacturer was Cheaguk, one of Korea's wealthiest conglomerates. Lacking sufficient evidence, Kim Shin refused. On the street, Mai Ray encountered a person protesting and learned that the humidifier disinfectant had poisoned their son. But because of Cheaguk's wealth and power, no one dared to speak out. Meanwhile, CTM reporters arrived to interview the protester. Mai Ray remembered her aunt mentioning Kim Shin being penalized for breach of contract. She immediately called her aunt to ask for details and when Kim Shin had been fired. Her aunt explained he was fired for broadcasting content against management's wishes. While she couldn't recall the exact broadcast date, she remembered it coincided with a reporter's strike. Mai Ray learned from her colleagues at the station that the strike was scheduled for today. She rushed to tell Kim Shin, but he was focused on doing what he believed was right and didn't seem overly concerned. When Kim Shin returned to the company, the father of a victim seeking justice arrived, asking for his help. Kim Shin quietly made up his mind. At the end of the broadcast, he began to address the issue. The antibacterial solution in the humidifiers had caused serious lung damage to more than 20 people, even resulting in fatalities. Everyone bowed their heads in respect for Kim Shin's courageous act. The grieving father held him in the highest regard. After the news report, the deputy director immediately sought out Kim Shin, demanding he pay the penalty for breach of contract. However, Kim Shin had anticipated this. According to Clause 5 of his contract, he was exempt from liability when reporting breaking news. After watching Kim Shin's report, Mai Ray sought out her brother to investigate the humidifier disinfectant further. However, she encountered strong resistance from him. Undeterred, Mai Ray approached the female screenwriter and Jedu Island, hoping they would assist her. The two decided to join Mai Ray in her investigation. Mai Ray then met with Jedu and shared her idea. However, as the conglomerate involved was the broadcasting station's biggest advertising partner, Jedu was hesitant to confront them. After Mai Ray left, Jedu pondered her words and recalled his speech to the shareholders. Finally, he called his brother to proceed with a program exposing the truth. When the program aired, the chairman was furious and summoned Jedu. Without hesitation, Jedu submitted his resignation, catching the chairman off guard. Upon arriving home, Mai Ray found two men in black suits standing next to her aunt, who had fainted. Mai Ray screamed in fear. The man in black revealed that her aunt wasn't Mai Ray from the future, but a Mai Ray from a parallel timeline. Everyone rushed her aunt to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed her with age-related amnesia, but suggested that regular contact with familiar faces might help her regain her memory. Looking at his aunt lying in the hospital bed, Mai Ray's brother remembered the words of the man in black. Kim Shin had been saved in the future. When she awoke, her aunt borrowed a nurse's phone to call Kim Shin. Frightened and confused, she begged him to come see her. Kim Shin rushed to the hospital, and his aunt embraced him, speaking about their destined connection. The next day, her aunt watched Kim Shin's news report and told Mai Ray to stop him. A nurse quickly sedated her. When she woke up again, the man in black was waiting in her room. Her aunt's memory fully returned. She wept, apologizing to Mai Ray and begging for forgiveness. Mai Ray forgave her. Despite her health being unsuitable for time travel, her aunt decided to return to the future to be with Kim Shin in his final years. Before parting, her brother hugged her, urging her to take care of her health. Mai Ray gave her the key to the Pando box, explaining she would bury it under the tree by their house and hoped her aunt would live long enough to dig it up. They waved goodbye. 3 years later, Jedu Island became a famous anchorwoman, and Mai Ray a renowned screenwriter. CTM's lawsuit against Kim Shin finally ended in his victory. Kim Shin had started his own company. Her aunt opened the Pando box and found many pictures of her younger self. Looking at the face of the child in the pictures, can you guess which of the two men Mai Ray ended up with?